All right. Civil and religious freedom must go hand in hand, and persecution matures them both. A people content with the thoughts made for them by the priests of a church will be content with royalty by divine right. The church and the throne mutually sustaining each other. They will smother schism and reap infidelity and indifference, and while the battle for freedom goes on around them, they will only sink the more apathetically into servitude and a deep trance, perhaps occasionally interrupted by furious fits of frenzy followed by helpless exhaustion. Despotism is not difficult in any land that has only known one master from its childhood. But there is no harder problem than to perfect and perpetuate free government by the people themselves. For it is not one king that is needed, all must be kings. It is easy to set up Masaniello, that in a few days he may fall lower than before, but free government grows slowly like the individual human faculties, and like the forest trees from the inner heart outward. Liberty is not only the common birthright, but it is lost as well by non-user as by misuser. It depends far more on the universal effort than any other human property. It has no single shrine or holy well of pilgrimage for the nation, for its waters should burst out freely from the whole soil. The free popular power is one that is only known in its strength in the hour of adversity, for all its trials, sacrifices, and expectations are its own. It is trained to think for itself and also to act for itself. When the enslaved people prostrate themselves in the dust before the hurricane, like the alarmed beasts of the field, the free people stand erect before it. In all the strength of unity and self-reliance and mutual reliance with effrontery against all but the visible hand of God. It is neither cast down by calamity nor elated by success. This vast power of endurances, forbearance, of patience, and of performance is only acquired by continual exercise of all the functions, like the healthful physical human vigor, like the individual moral vigor. And the maxim is no less true than old, that eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. It is curious to observe the universal pretext by which the tyrants of all times take away the national liberties. It is stated in the statutes of Edward II that the justices and the sheriff should no longer be elected by the people, on account of the riots and dissensions which had arisen. The same reason was given long before for the suppression of popular election of the bishops. And there is a witness to this untruth in the yet older times, when Rome lost her freedom and her indignant citizens declared that tumultuous liberty is better than disgraceful tranquility. With the compasses and scale, we can trace all the figures used in the mathematics of planes, or in what are called geometry and trigonometry, two words that are themselves deficient in meaning. Geometry, which the letter G in most lodges is said to signify, means measurement of land or the earth, or surveying. And trigonometry, the measurement of triangles or figures with three sides or angles. The latter is by far the most appropriate name for the science intended to be expressed by the word geometry. Neither is of a meaning sufficiently wide, for although the vast surveys of great spaces of the earth's surface and of coasts by which shipwreck and calamity to mariners are avoided are effected by means of triangulation, though it was by the same method that the French astronomers measured a degree of latitude and so established a scale of measures on an immutable basis, though it is by means of the immense triangle that has for its base a line drawn in an imagination between the place of the earth now and its place 6 months hence in space, and for its apex a planet or star, that the distance of Jupiter or Sirius from the Earth is ascertained. And though there is a triangle still more vast, its base extending either way from us, with and past the horizon into immensity, and its apex infinitely distant above, to which corresponds a similar infinite triangle below. What is above equaling what is below, immensity equaling immensity. Yet the science of numbers, to which Pythagoras attached so much importance, and whose mysteries are found everywhere in the ancient religions, and most of all in the Kabbalah and in the Bible, is not sufficiently expressed by either the word geometry or the word trigonometry. For that science includes these, with arithmetic and also with algebra, logarithms, the integral and differential calculus, and by means of it are worked out the great problems of astronomy or the laws of the stars. Virtue is but heroic bravery, to do the thing thought to be true in spite of all enemies of flesh or spirit, in spite of all temptations or menaces. Man is accountable for the uprightness of his doctrine, but not for the rightness of it. Devout enthusiasm is far easier than a good action. The end of thought is action. The sole purpose of religion is an ethic. Theory and political science is worthless, except for the purpose of being realized in practice. In every credo, religious or political, as in the soul of man, there are two regions, the dialectic and the ethic. And it is only when the two are harmoniously blended that a perfect discipline is evolved. There are men who dialectically are Christians, and there are a multitude who dialectically are Masons, and yet who are ethically infidels, as these are ethically of the profane, in the strictest sense, intellectual believers but practical atheists, men who will write you evidences in perfect faith in their logic but cannot carry out the Christian or Masonic doctrine owing to the strength or weakness of the flesh. On the other hand, there are many dialectical skeptics but ethical believers, as there are many Masons who have never undergone initiation, and as ethics are the end and purpose of religion, so are ethical believers the most worthy. He who does right is better than he who thinks right. But you must not act upon the hypothesis that all men are hypocrites, whose conduct does not square with their sentiments. No vice is more rare, for no task is more difficult than systematic hypocrisy. When the demagogue becomes a usurper, it does not follow that he was all the time a hypocrite. Shallow men only so judge of others. The truth is that creed has in general very little influence on the conduct in religion, on that of the individual, in politics, on that of party. As a general thing, the Mahometan, once again, that's one of these archaic words for Muslim, Mahometan in the Orient, is far more honest and trustworthy than the Christian. A gospel of love in the mouth is an avatar of persecution in the heart. Men who believe in eternal damnation and a literal sea of fire and brimstone incur the certainty of it, according to their creed. On the slightest temptation of appetite or passion, predestination insists on the necessity of good works. In Masonry, at the least flow of passion, one speaks ill of another behind his back, and so far from the brotherhood of blue Masonry being real, and the solemn pledges contained in the use of the word brother being complied with extraordinary pains, are taken to show that Masonry is a sort of abstraction which scorns to interfere in worldly matters. The rule may be regarded as universal, that where there is a choice to be made, a Mason will give his vote and influence in politics and business to the less qualified profane in preference to the better qualified Mason. One will take an oath to oppose any unlawful usurpation of power, and then become the ready and even eager instrument of a usurper. Another will call one brother, and then play toward him the part of Judas Iscariot, or strike him, as Joab did Abner under the fifth rib, with a lie whose authorship is not to be traced. Masonry does not change human nature and cannot make honest men of born knaves. While you are still engaged in preparation and in accumulating principles for future use, do not forget the words of the Apostle James. For if any be a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like unto a man beholding his natural face in a glass. For he beholdeth himself and goeth away, and straightway forgetteth what manner of man he was. But whoso looketh into the perfect law of liberty, and continueth, he being not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this man shall be blessed in his work. If any man among you seem to be religious, and bridleth not his tongue, but deceive his own heart, this man's religion is vain. Faith, if it hath not works, is dead, being an abstraction. A faith is justified by works, and not by faith only. The devils believe and tremble. As the body without the heart is dead, so faith without works. So is faith without works. In political science, also, free governments are erected and free constitutions framed upon some simple and intelligible theory. Upon whatever theory they are based, no sound conclusion is to be reached except by carrying the theory out without flinching, both in argument on constitutional questions and in practice. Shrink from the true theory through timidity, or wander from it through want of the logical faculty, or transgress against it through passion or on the plea of necessity or expediency. And you have denial or invasion of rights, laws that offend against first principles, usurpation of illegal powers, or abnegation and abdication of legitimate authority. Do not forget either that as the showy, superficial, impudent, and self-conceited will almost always be preferred, even in utmost stress of danger and calamity of the state, to the man of solid learning, large intellect, and Catholic sympathies, because he is nearer the common popular and legislative level, so the highest truth is not acceptable to the mass of mankind. When Solon was asked if he had given his countrymen the best laws, he answered, the best they are capable of receiving. This is one of the profound utterances. This is one of the most profound utterances on record, and yet, like all great truths, so simple as to be rarely comprehended. It contains the whole philosophy of history. It utters a truth which, had it been recognized, would have saved men an immensity of vain, idle disputes, and have led them into the clearer paths of knowledge in the past. It means this, that all truths are truths of period, not truths for eternity, that whatsoever great fact has had strength and vitality enough to make itself real, whether of religion, morals, government, or of whatever else, and to find place in the world, has been a truth for the time, and as good men were capable of receiving. So too with great men, the intellect and capacity of a people has a single measure, that of the great men whom Providence gives it, and whom it receives. There have always been men too great for their time or their people. Every people makes such men only its idols, as it is capable of comprehending. To impose ideal truth or law upon an incapable and merely real man must ever be a vain and empty speculation. The laws of sympathy govern in this, as they do in regard to men who are put at the head. We do not know as yet what qualifications the sheep insist on in a leader. With men who are too high intellectually, the mass have as little sympathy as they have with the stars. When Burke, the wisest statesman England ever had, rose to speak, the House of Commons was depopulated as upon an agreed signal. There is as little sympathy between the mass and the highest truths. The highest truth being incomprehensible to the man of realities. The highest man is, and largely above his level, will be a great unreality and falsehood to an unintellectual man.